There is another brush that made an appearance several times throughout the entire painting of Times Square, and that is a brush to create stitching. Because stitching appears in many places. I'll show you a couple of them. Here's my friend John. We're getting real close, and you'll see some of the stitching in this piece. So we're getting close here on his arm. You see the stitching on his shirt there. We see the stitching on the wristband. And come over here and see John Knoll. If we're getting close down here, you'll see that there's stitching on his shirt, stitching on his jeans, all over the place there. And my wife on her jacket, on Zosha's jacket, you see there's stitching all through it in all different parts. And even some of the billboards. Like, for instance, we look here, way back here in the central area, you see there's a billboard right there. This little billboard. If we go look at the billboard itself, the billboard looks like this. And if we look at one of these boots, I'll open up one of the boots themselves. There's boot number 2. And we're getting close on that. You'll see that there's stitching all through that as well. Even though in the actual painting, this doesn't even show up as anything, I created it so it'll be as close to the real thing as possible. So let's go in here and create a stitch. Now, to create a stitch, like in any other brush tip that I've created, I'm going to use black. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by creating a little elliptical selection right there like that. And let's zoom in on it so we can see how this is going to look. I'm going to go ahead and fill that with black. So just go in there and say fill with the foreground color at 100% normal and fill it. I'm now going to duplicate it straight across. I'm holding on my shift key to constrain that and go straight across, and I can deselect it. So now I got 2 circles. Using the rectangular marquee tool, I'm going to connect the 2 circles by selecting an area right between the 2 of them like that and filling that with black as well. And there you can see that I have this long shape, little lozenge kind of a thing right there. Pulling back, there we see that little lozenge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that and say Define Brush Preset. I can now throw it away. Let's fill it with the background color, which is white, and we're done. I'm going to create a path for myself here. This is a path that the stitching is going to travel along. Okay, so it goes about like that. Here's my stitching. So we'll go to the path and we'll save that path for later. Now in my background, I'll just throw a color in here. Just throw any kind of a color, kind of like a light beige in there, like so. We'll just fill that in there. And in the layer on top of this is where we're going to create our stitch. So we'll call it Stitch. So now, I get my paintbrush and I pick up that brush right there, which is at the end of our little stack. We recently created it. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to pick a deeper color that's going to be the actual stitching. So we'll go with, say, about like that. There's a nice color right there. So now the brush does that. So by going into the brushes panel, we'll be able to go in there and modify so it looks like an actual stitch. I'm going to go in there and let's bring the size down considerably. That's a good size for our stitch. Make it a little bigger so we're going to see the difference in what we're going to do now. And I'm going to increase the spacing on it so that it has enough spacing between it so it looks like it's gone into the fabric and out of the fabric, into the fabric, like a regular stitch. You're not sure what it looks like? Look down at the shirt you're wearing. There's probably stitching on there somewhere. It's always good to refer to reality to know how to recreate it. Look at how things work, and then you can figure out how to do it in Photoshop. Now that we have that, the brush is doing that. So the last thing we have to do, as we've done in the previous brushes, is go into Shape Dynamics, turn off the control for size jitter, and set the angle jitter control to direction. Don't change any size on it. No size, no angles, no roundness. You could change the roundness if you wanted your stitching to be a little squattier. See, I can go in there and do that. But you see how it's doing it to individual strands? Here's a case where I would control the roundness globally by going back over here and dragging this guy over so I can make really thin strips or wider strips and so on. So now that I have all that, that's the only changes I'm going to make, because now you can see that it's starting to take on the right form. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to my path. I'm going to take that, make sure I'm in the layer. I'm in the layer stitch. Yep, take that path. I'm in the brush, and I go ahead and stroke it. Turn off the path. Now we've got the basic stitch going into the fabric. We want to go in there and give the illusion that this stitching has caused a dent into the fabric. So I'm going to go into my layer styles, and I need to have a nice, even dark color along the entire edge. So I'm going to give it an outer glow, because that's the only one that's going to give me a color around the entire edge. I'm going to increase the size a bit, like that. I'm going to change that from that color to a deep version of this color here. So I'm going to go to a really deep version like that, way down here like that, and change the mode from screen to multiply, which is giving me that dark tone that I want. So I'm going to go in there and increase the size a little bit and maybe lower the opacity just a little bit. Then I'm going to go to the actual stitches and say give it a bevel and emboss, which is going to give it that nice little raised section right there. And that white is a little too strong, so I'm going to pick up this color here and lighten it up just a little bit, just so I get a little bit of a highlight there. Bring the size down just a little so it becomes just a little edge. Bring it down to about, say, 2, so I get just a little edge on the string, and click OK, and you see that we have this nice kind of a stitch. By creating a single tip that was just 2 rounded edges with a straight edge in between, and it gave us our stitch.